You're listening to Dropping Pins, a story-based learning series from the Okayest Hunter podcast, hosted by Derek Melkor, and aimed at helping you hone your whitetail hunting skills. You'll hear the aha moments when known and unknown proven whitetail killers started consistently putting mature bucks on the ground.
Welcome to the Dropping Pins podcast, part of the Okayest Hunter podcast network. Just wanted to say thanks again to all the listeners and everybody who's guested on the show so far. Fall is in full swing. We are recording this on September 30th, the last day of September this year, 2024, which means tomorrow a whole bunch of states across the United States are going to have their archery opener on October 1st, which is super exciting. I know I got a bunch of buddies in other states who kick open tomorrow. So guys are taking off work. It's the opening day, sleepless night tonight. And it's just going to kick off the shenanigans and the fun for a whole new season for a lot of folks. Many of you know here in Wisconsin, we've been going for a couple of weeks already. We opened September 14th. So we got an early dose of fun. And our guest tonight also got to have a little bit of early fun. He's already knocked down a buck. He's got a buck at the taxidermist already this season, which is pretty damn impressive, and one of the reasons we wanted him to have on the Dropping Pins series tonight and share some stories for us and some learning moments he's had. Our guest currently resides in southern part of Pennsylvania, but he gets his rounds and hunts multiple states and has found success in a lot of different states on DIY trips all across the United States. And you probably have heard the name before and hopefully listened to a podcast or two, because our guest tonight has made his round on the podcast sharing kind of what's helped him be consistent on mature bucks. And tonight I'm excited to hear some stories from him. So I'd like to introduce Ryan Glitsky, the Moose, as he's known on Instagram. Ryan, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, we've been talking for a little while, trying to get things sorted out, and then we got it sorted out, so I'm glad we could get you.
Yeah, we're here. We're here.
Of course, you got to have some technical issues to fumble up across here and there, so we had that going too. But we're all set now, and wanted to wish you a congratulations on that beautiful buck you shot in Maryland earlier this year. That was pretty awesome, dude.
Yeah, thank you.
For those who have not heard of you or heard one of your podcasts, Ryan, I'll just ask you the question that I ask all of our guests to give a little bit of context. Where did you grow up hunting? What kind of terrain did you kind of cut your teeth on? And what kind of stuff are you hunting now? Just so when you jump in a story, we've got a decent idea. You're public, private. What's kind of your bread and butter?
Be honest with you, when I first started out, I had a pretty good diversity. I hunted a lot of hill country, farm country type mix, a little bit of river bottoms. I did that for quite a long time. I did venture off a little bit in my early 20s into the mountains and big woods, but pretty much for a few decades, I really concentrated in more that diversity that I talked about there at first. But over the last probably 7 years, I'd say, that's all changed. Pretty much primary big woods mountains now. And that is my love, and that is my passion.
Once you get a taste of that, and especially when you find success in that big wood setting, it's tough to find that in a lot of other terrains. And I'm not, there's a lot of different reasons for that, but people who know, they know. I mean, that's a tough thing to get out of your blood.
Yeah, it's a learning curve, but it's a good learning curve. I think when you get into that element of the big woods and the vastness of the mountain, stuff like that, man, you're almost forced to be a better woodsman.
So you're doing that, I'm sure, in Pennsylvania, your home state. There, you guys have the Allegheny. I mean, you got a bunch of national forests up there.
Yeah.
I could be mistaken, but I think it's like millions of acres of national forest that you guys have access to.
Yeah.
Are you doing that kind of stuff?
Yeah, here it's a little diversity of everything. Our public land. I mean, you go anywhere except from the river bottoms, the hill country, farm country, to the big woods and mountains. The big woods areas take a vast majority of the public land areas up in the state.
Are you finding that opportunity available in any other states around you? Like, are you finding that kind of big wood stuff? Are you traveling to do that? Or when you travel, are you kind of looking for, more, say, farm country, river bottom stuff?
Now my passion is more looking for the big woods mountains. The buck I killed here in Maryland was in that mountains, big wood settings. I will hunt the big woods of Ohio. Uh, I'm looking into the big woods of New York. And just expanding, constantly looking for that area. Like I said, that's the chess match I like to play now. I tell guys this is, I think I'm nuts. I get kind of bored with the Midwest stuff. Nothing. I mean, I enjoy it and I'll go back out. But I like to be able to roam. I like to be able to go, and that big woods, the mountain type settings, it just gives me that. I have, if I can't find them, I will find them in those scenarios.
It's something, because that's the kind of the similar stuff. The northeastern Wisconsin, we've got a lot of national forests, and that's the stuff that I grew up hunting since I was 8 or 9 years old. That's where my dad was pulling me through, and I've always had the curiosity part. So like, what's over the next ridge? And
Yes.
boy, you hunt some of those smaller properties in Midwest, and
Yeah.
not all of them are small. There's some huge ones, but knowing that you could always just go see and like scratch that itch and go look
Yeah.
further and further,
Yep.
like, that's just a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Oh, I mean, like I said, I tell guys, I think my passion, I mean, we all love walking up on a good buck, but that postseason scouting, oh, that's my love, because you're always wanting to know what's over the next ridge or over the next mountain. And that's what's awesome. When you got tens of thousands of acres, it's almost impossible to cover it all in a lifetime.
And then the postseason stuff, from what I've seen, like up in the big wood stuff and ridges, mountains, the mountains more so probably than what we have here in Wisconsin. We don't have mountains, but like when you're postseason and the leaves are down and you're just out there burning up your boot leather and scouting, you just get such a good idea of like how the network of deer work.
Yes.
And like how, you know what I mean? The entire
Yep.
layout, and you're not touching the entire stuff, but like you just get this profound idea of, oh, like I see how that relates to this and this, but on a huge scale. And that's just so much
Macro
fun.
level. Yep. Yeah, that's why I call it macro level. You take it all on the macro level, and then the game is getting it on the micro level where you're getting within bow range.
Yeah, that's not the easy part, is it?
Yeah, that's the tough part there.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, anybody who's tried that before, it's a challenge. And once you find success in it, if you do, or even encounters, it just hooks you for life.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. But man, you've definitely found success in a lot of different ways. And I think that's one of the reasons that we really wanted to hear from you on here, is because we think you have so much to offer a multitude of people, just with things that you've picked up over the years that have made maybe, those decisions on where you go or what you're doing, when you're doing it, just a little bit easier, a little bit more burned into the subconscious, because you've just been through so many different situations, which is just really what builds that master. Like you master that certain area, and then the things just become a little bit easier. You stop thinking about them quite as much because you know what you're doing. And
Gets instinctive.
it does, which is awesome. And that's one of the reasons that in a lot of, podcasts, when you talk to guys who are really good, it's the stuff that they're no longer thinking about that young guys or newer guys need to hear, because that's like how you get to the point of being really successful.
Yeah.
So here on the Dropping Pins podcast, as you know, we're trying to do some story-based stuff and some things, some moments. So I just want to kick it off and hand the ball over to you and ask you, what kind of story, or start us off with however you like, but what kind of story kind of rings in your mind as something that made you think a little bit different about hunting these big bucks, or taught you something, whether it was successful or unsuccessful? Share whatever you'd like.
Well, it's hard to pinpoint a hunt or a story where things start to click, I guess you can say. Those successful hunts, what they given me over the years is confidence. Okay. It's not so much, yes, you're always learning out there, but successful hunts gave me confidence in my postseason scouting, gave me confidence when I'm setting a trail camera up for my summer inventory over a scrape, gave me confidence when I'm going in, the hunt a spot, where I'm going into in-season scouting. Those successful hunts gave me the confidence, which I've built over the years to be successful. But I'm telling you, the failures, the screw ups, getting my nuts kicked in, those hunts there, that was the foundation of the teaching and learning to get to this point, to get that confidence. like I said, it's hard to pinpoint a hunt, you know. But be honest with you, it's the mistakes and failures that got me to this point, because it's 100-to-1 ratio. You know what I mean? The successful hunts compared to the failures, and the successful hunts you learn from. But like I said, you walk away confident, and that gives you confidence in your ability in other forms of this. But the mistakes, man, that's when your head's down. You're walking out of the timber at night, driving back home at night, not getting sleep at night. You missed a big buck or did this, screwed this up. Those are things you learn from, you build off of to be successful and to be confident. Because at the end of the day, when you get confident in this, that's what kills.
That's an interesting part of it, and obviously confidence is a huge part of what you do. I mean, you make so many decisions in the deer woods every time you go out there that if you're not confident, it's hard to stick with it. It's hard to be at your best when the moment does come. I guess this is not story based at all, but it just leads me into a question I have for you. So like you just killed a buck early season, right? Like that was early September, big
Yeah.
wood setting. In my eyes, it's so much harder to build that confidence earlier in the year. Whereas during the rut, when deer are flying around, I mean, we talked about luck a little tiny bit before we started recording here, but like it's easier to get lucky. It really is when deer are obviously moving. So like your confidence can grow. Most people in November can feel confident about their choices, but man, knocking them down early season, that's a real confidence boost to get on deer, know what they're doing. You got to be so damn close when it's early. You can't be off by 50 yards. You're not getting a chance. Like you got to know what you're doing. So in your eyes, is that like a time of year that really like?
I'm not. I've never really been. I've never really been an early season guy. I've understood it, but I've told people before it's on podcasts, like where I work, where I live, where I hunt, there's a vast mileage. I can't leave work in early season and get to my big bucks. So I'm stuck hunting, I don't know, a little bit of private. I'll kill some does, but it's lesser quality of bucks, what I'm not interested in. So I don't have that opportunity early season. But when this Maryland thing come around, I have the weekends and stuff like that to start hitting this stuff. It opened up some opportunities. Like I said, I understood how to hunt the early season. It's that's not a problem. It's just doing it, I guess. So when Maryland they come around here, this is where that confidence, like I said, came in. I went down one time in the summertime. I summer scouted. That one time gave me confidence where I needed to be once the season come in, because I found a primary bedding area. Bedding is key to me. So I fed off of that. And as the season came closer, I had two options, a lot depending on the wind that day. If I had the right conditions, I knew what it was going to be. It was going to be plan A, and that's what ended up working out. And I had confidence going in there, reading the sign. I was confident there was a lot of acorns on the ground. I got there, man, it was a lot of mass. Okay, how do we play this game? That means I'm going to hunt the bedding, but man, I got to be aggressive. I got to damn near be in the bedding, because he's not going to move real far off that bedding, because he can get up and feed. But I had some other confidence in things I've known. There was a small cold front. Red moon was that day. Like I had a lot of things that didn't play that day. Gave me a ton of confidence going in there. I never knew this buck. I had no trail cameras, no nothing. I just felt confident. It was a primary bedding area. There was historical sign in around this area from years past. I knew where the bucks were comfortable coming in and out of this bedding area. And I went in just old school, read the sign, set up, hunted. And that's where the luck comes in play. He walks by at 440 and I kill him. That's the luck part of it. You know what I mean? You got to have that. But the failures years before hunting early season stuff, being too far off the bed, not learning that, not reading the sign, not reading the droppings and the tracks and the acorn caps that they've been feeding on, not seeing historical where they're coming in and out of bedding areas. All that failure in the past gave me confidence on this hunt where I need to be to kill.
And maybe you've already talked about this, and if you have, sorry for reiterating it, because I haven't listened to any of the recent, you said you recorded one last week. I haven't heard any of yours since you killed that buck in Maryland. So apologize if you've already answered this on a podcast, but just out of curiosity and for myself and for the listeners. So when you went in there, you said you scouted one time, you found the bedding area.
Yeah.
Explain to us in a minute here just what time of year it was that you went in there. We know it was summer. How close to season were you? And when you went in there and you saw the historical sign, did you go in there and like stand it? Like, did you find his bed? Like, or did you just realize like this is a bedding area? I should hunt the fringe of it. Like, how did you go about that? That summer scouting, because summer scouting is the thing that I do. I'm a teacher. I got summers off. So it's a shitty time to scout, but it's the time I got. So I use it. I'm a summer scouting guy. That's what I do.
Yeah. How I look at summer scouting, a lot of my summer is around trail cameras, getting them up and over scratch, getting inventory. But of course, I will summer scout. I think I went down there. Don't quote me. I think it was like late July, early August. I honestly don't remember. It was somewhere around that time frame. It was actually my second trip down there. I went to another section, and I went down this section. I tackle my summer scouting the same as I do as postseason. I'm still looking at the same shit. Yes, it's a little hard. Instead of being able to see 100 yards in the woods, I can only see 10 or 20 yards because of everything grown up. But I'm still seeing historical sign. And like this particular area here, it was your pretty well your typical leeward side, and you can look at maps. If you kind of know what you're looking at, you can see the different colors of the habitat. And I kind of noticed that on this ridge system. And as I was down there, like I said, I was in there one other time before. I know there was some mountain laurel and some stuff around there. So I was kind of figuring there was a creek bottom. What I was seeing was mountain laurel was probably what I was seeing. So I was figuring embedded. Well, once I started cresting, I got to the top of this ridge system. It kind of flat plateaued out, and it was all a bunch of real great diversity. A lot of mountain laurel, a lot of oaks. I mean, it looked good, and there was a lot of historical sign. Like, this is looking pretty good. I started getting the spidey senses. As I started working my way out, before I went down the leeward side, there was a lot of blowdowns on the top of this ridge, about 40, 50 yards, 75, whatever it was off this. And how the diversity habitat, man, there was beds everywhere. Droppings are fresh from the summer. I seen no historical sign around it. And as I crested that ridge, went down, it wasn't mountain laurel, but it was just all scrub. I mean, just gorgeous bedding cover. And that's just how I played my summer. And as I worked around that day, I was there maybe 6 hours, put a few miles on. I found another potential spot too, some more bedding areas, another area there where concentrate for acorns and stuff, a lot of historical sign for the rut. I just kind of put that all together. Like I said, it's no really different what I do in the postseason, what I do in the summer. But the only thing different was, okay, I'm not rut hunting this spot. I'm going to be early season September hunting this. So I had to pay attention to the food sources, the acorns down there. I knew there was a lot of oaks, a lot of reds, a lot of whites, stuff like that. There was a lot of browse. So there was a lot of diversity coming off that one bedding area where I know they were probably going to stage up. They were going to get up, stage up in that diversity of cover around them oaks. And that's where I was going to get my opportunity. So that's how it all played into my summer scouting, how I thought about it. Wasn't focused on a rut hunter where I'm primarily what I am used typically. Yes, that was in the back of my head if I did go back down there in the rut, but I knew that September is when I was going to be down in early season. So to me, September, that early hunting, that's where the bed game is key, in my opinion, is that early season into early October, September, October, because a lot of times them bucks aren't moving really far off those beds in daylight cover.
You explained that beautifully. Thank you for that. I couldn't agree more. And a lot of times when you have those oak trees, like you were painting that picture, you had an area that obviously had a lot of browse. It was, real thick. There's deer bed in there, but they also feed in there. So sometimes you gotta be careful early season because those bucks will get up and they'll just browse around, you know what I mean? And kill time right in that bedding area. And sometimes when you find those bedding areas that have tons, those rub clusters that are just all around where they're feeding on browse, they're not traveling too far, especially if those oaks are right there in or on that transition where they can pick up acorns. They're falling right on their heads. Those are just tougher to hunt than normal. But it sounds like the one that you found was you had a somewhat of a direction of travel for him to come out, and then that distinction for folks who haven't spent near as much time in the woods. The way a guy like Ryan, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but the way you're obviously going to hunt a bedding area in September is going to be a lot different than how you're going to hunt it in November and set up on the downwind side or look for that pinch point. And you explained that beautifully.
Yeah. When you get in the right situation, the gap's going to be more where I'm focusing on the transition edge of the terrain. I'm looking for the multiple things coming to an area where they're moving. Multiple bucks are moving that I'm interested in killing. I'm going to get in a situation like I spoke of a will where there's a lot of things coming to one certain location in a rut. That's not what I was particularly looking for that September hunt.
Yeah, I hear you, man. That's a cool little hunt. And 440 got up early, came right in.
Yeah, right mood, man. I mean, where he was going, I don't know. I was in with some oaks, some reds. My guess is either because he was walking through, like he was going somewhere at 440. red moon. So he was up on his feet early, and it was windy that day. And like I said, it was a small cold front. My guess, either there was, like, I was in with some reds and stuff. My guess, either there was a hot white not far dropping, or maybe some cherry trees or something I didn't see was dropping. He was going. He had another destination where he chose to go. I'm not sure, but I'd just be lucky and I was in the right spot at the right time.
Was that the first or the only deer you saw?
Only deer. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Only deer. Yep. I was 440. I was in the stand for an hour, about an hour. That's what I wasn't in Maryland real long. First hunt in Maryland. I told my wife coming back home at night, this will probably never happen again. So I'm enjoying it.
I mean, that time of year, it's getting dark at like 8, damn near 9 o'clock, probably.
I'm sitting there. Like I said, I filmed for Whitetail Addiction and stuff, and I didn't have anything ready. Nothing. I did not get on video. I had literally, I'm telling you, the time I saw that buck to the time I killed him was 5 seconds. And I'm telling you, it was just all instinctual. That's all it was.
I personally like it when it happens like that. I don't like watching them
screw
too
it up.
Oh man, that's awesome. One of the things that you mentioned when you were talking about going down there and scouting is you explained that area, and just something that I don't know if this is even a talking point, but something I just wanted to mention, and we kind of hit on. I was talking about before, like, somebody who just spent a lot of time, and you get that mastery. They say 10,000 hours, you become somewhat of a master, and it becomes like your subconscious. I think for a lot of people, summer scouting is really, really intimidating because the lack of visibility. But I do feel like people who have like spent a lot of time in the woods where you can anticipate what you're going to find. You know what I mean? Like you get up to a certain area and there's you can find what you're looking for because you have a very good idea of how the deer are relating to it. Whereas if you don't have that established knowledge, summer scouting is really, really difficult. It feels like you're walking around in a jungle. You don't know what you're looking for, but the guys who already have spent, all their time posting, it really does become easier. And summer scouting can be really effective, but without that prior knowledge and being able to anticipate what's going to happen in that terrain, I can see where it's an absolute nightmare for people. Like, there's bugs, there's ticks, you can't see shit. You're trying to find stuff. I definitely see where guys, that's a hard entry point to sell somebody on summer scouting who hasn't spent a ton of time in the woods.
Yeah, I do believe it is probably, it doesn't necessarily have to be. I believe if you have a little more experience, it is easier because you're going to deal, like I said, I like to scout dirty. If I tell guys, I hunt dirty and I scout dirty. That means I'm in some nasty shit. When I come home, it doesn't matter if it's postseason or summer, I'm bleeding and it burns. I get in the shower, and the summertime, it 10 times worse, because you're getting in some nasty stuff. And yes, I mean, twice this year, I tramped on a rattlesnake and almost tramped on another one. Spiders, bees, bugs, like it's a part of the game if you're in the summertime. You get yourself tied up in a bunch of mountain laurel in the summer, you're good. It sucks, so it's ugly, it's brutal. Does it pay off? Yes. I do believe yes. The more I tell guys, stick to the postseason for a couple of years, get an idea what the deer do. So then the summertime, because you can't see, everything's close. You really got to look at that fine details of historical signs, stuff like that. And the edge of transitions are there. You can read it, you can see it. You just got to, like I said, everything's gonna be a little bit closer.
Yeah, I hear you, man. And just curious, I mean, we're talking a little bit about scouting here. This is not story-based at all, but just your experience. I'm just interested. You mentioned before, like, setting up trail cameras, summer inventory on scrapes. So obviously you're pretty interested in scrapes and scrape hunting. You do a lot of rut hunting. For you, is that one of the big keys as far as like trail cam? Do you hunt the scrapes? Are you like, what part do rubs play into that? Is that of interest to you when you're out scouting? What is like the gold mine of like, you like the beds. I'm with you there. How do those two things kind of play into your scouting?
I mean, the big thing, if you're going to ask me like what I'm really going to key in on is going to be, I mean, personally, postseason, it's going to be doe bedding. Bedding in general, but doe bedding for me, I'm a rut hunter. End of the day, now I'm a rut hunter. I said I get the early season thing. Men and day, man, I love the rut, and that's where I want to be. So I'm going to focus in on the doe bedding. Then it's going to be the edge of transition, the habitat diversity, stuff like that, terrain features, where I'm going to catch that son of a gun cruising, looking for does. Either he's chasing, he's cruising, or something seeking. He's coming through a particular area where I can put an arrow in at 20 yards. That's my post seeing Scott. That's what I'm looking for, what I'm trying to fine tune. The scrapes and rubs all play into that. The scrapes themselves, everybody knows I'm a big scrape guy. I will hunt a scrape, absolutely. Mid-October into late October, first couple of days of November, scrapes are hot. Absolutely. Right scenario, off the right cover, right area. Absolutely. A big, heavy scrape line, right end October, dynamite. But a lot of times the scrapes for me, it's inventory purpose in the summer, because that's when I get a lot of my big bucks in the Big Woods Mountains. They're going to transition a little bit. Some will stay, some will move, but I'm going to find them. But that tells me what's in the general area. The scrapes, that's my game there, to where now as a rut hunter, okay, I have these multiple shooters in this general location. I have an inventory of scrapes. Yes, I can kill them off the scrape or near the scrape, but a lot of times I'm off of that hot sign, sometimes hunting that terrain pinch or something where I'm going to kill
them. The scrape, in my experience, the scrape game in the big wood situation is just a little bit different, because the scrapes are almost always in high deer traffic areas, because in the big woods there's far less deer, so you're getting the scrapes that I found and had the best luck on are, in natural areas that are travel corridors. Whereas like it's the same in like farm country, but there's just way more scrapes because there's more deer and they travel in more places. So like you mentioned setting it up in the summertime to get an inventory. I totally see where that makes sense, because most of the time those scrapes are going to be in spots where the deer naturally want to be traveling through anyway. Is that at all what you're seeing?
Most of my like you're looking for daylight activity and a lot of activity for mature bucks. Typically, the thing they're going to have in common is security cover. Those deer the bucks got to feel, mature bucks got to feel safe. That security cover is going to be in a form of cover or habitat, like steep terrain. That's where you're going to get consistent mature buck pictures, night or day. I get a lot of daytime pictures, but the key there is that diversity of habitat, that cover, terrain, or something. That buck's got to feel safe getting there. And then, like I said, if you're looking for daylight activity to either inventory or kill them, that security cover is key, because a lot of times, a lot of your sign too, a lot of your rubs, a lot of your scrapes, I pick up on this. I picked up this over the years as folks around that doe bedding. You find a big primary doe bedding area, like where the does are, they're pretty well stick out. The food will change, pressure will change some things, particularly they're in the same area around the does, I find. And around them outskirts, that we're going to find a lot of big sign. We're going to find a lot of sign in general around those areas. That stuff I key in on.
Yeah, man, that's definitely something that I just need to pay more attention of in my own scouting, as I'm always so focused on the buck end of it, that the doe bedding, and just the time of year to switch from like, because there's this awkward little time where, scrapes and buck sign pre-rut is like, you want to be on it, that hottest sign, but then the biggest bucks, they're the ones who jump off that sign, it seems like, and they know like those first does are coming in. So like, screw the sign, I'm going to cruise doe bedding areas, and you don't want to be the guy who's still sitting on the scrapes.
Yeah. Well, that gets back to, like I said, the dropping pin, the stories here. I could go down some stories here. We can talk about how I've learned some of this stuff over the years with the does. The doe is number one when it comes to rut, in my opinion. Like I've learned over the years sitting and, having hunts, that weren't successful with a tag punch, but I've learned in areas where you get into, that third week or last week of October, you get in some of these areas, historically wise, those does, you'll learn where they pop the same time every year, that doe family group. You can key in on that stuff. And that's just from other hunts that I wasn't successful on, but I learned from them, because I've learned to educate in these spots where these does were coming in heat. And like I've told a story before, I had a spot down in some flood control areas and in some farm country, like I said, that mixed hill country stuff. 4 out of 5 years I killed a good buck out of the same damn tree, because I learned the does popped. I just go in there from about that last week of October into that first week of November. Those bucks were, every buck in around the area were coming cruising through. It was an awesome funnel. Like I said, that's just stuff from previous hunts. You start to add that together, and then you're eventually successful off of that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. Can you just tell us about that specific spot? What was keeping the does there? Obviously, there was a doe family group that, was I don't know if it was the mature doe or whatever was coming into heat, but walk us into a little bit of detail about what that spot looked like and then how you set up on it and the time of year or how many sits that you threw before you started seeing those bucks check on it, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I can kind of paint a picture. Say at a map, north, east, west, all that stuff. On the southern end, there was a ridge system. It was fairly thick cover, beautiful bedding area. Kind of in the middle of that was a plateau. The intersection of trails and everything. Okay, then that dumped off. There was a cliff actually that dumped off into a north part of the property was a creek bottom, which was thick and nasty. But there was a cliff there. That there was two draws on each side of that cliff. That kind of made an X, you could say, into that plateau where there's a bunch of straight stuff like that. It was an awesome little travel corridor there. Well, the north end, you had that creek bottom, which was thick and nasty bedding. Then on that other part, the southern part, was a thick ridge bedding. Well, but all those does were in amongst those two areas. They would start coming in. Like the ones on the south, I noticed would come in that late October, 25th, 27th. Well, then the ones in the creek bottom were like at November 2nd, 3rd, 4th. They would like, so you had like about a 2-week window there. So I just sit there. We call it the flat. That's what the name of the stand was. And
right at the X.
Yeah,
by that cliff.
I actually did. Actually, if anybody ever goes on the Hunt Better guys, I did a video on it. One of these bucks back here I killed. I actually did a video and they did a diagram there. It's pretty cool. But 4 out of 5 years, I killed at least a 3.5-year-old plus out of that stand. And the reason I don't hunt there no more is because of this stuff. I lost my spots and somebody figured it out. And like I said, I transitioned to the mountains and stuff. It was more of kind of a big woods area, but that was a mix of ag and hill country, all that stuff. But anyway, I wanted to kill bigger bucks too, and they didn't really have the quality of bucks I wanted. But anyway, but that area there, but you sat in the middle of it, and the way I could access everything else, it was just a transition area between them bedding areas. Them bucks would just, there was nothing to see. I saw double digits of bucks some days, a lot of young bucks, wow. But if there was a good buck in the area, I can almost guarantee you, I would eventually at least get eyes on him. If I didn't kill him, at least I would get eyes on him, at least in that area. It's just phenomenal rut setup.
So in that kind of spot, when you find, that corridor that just works out perfect and there's, good doe groups that are going to come in, are you thinking that like, hey, I'm just going to sit here until one walks by? Are you like going to throw hunt 3-4 days in a row if you need to, because that one's going to walk by? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. Long as conditions say I can, I will try to line it up for the conditions. I will get aggressive. I tell guys I am aggressive with the wind. Sometimes my thermals. I will give up 20-30% of a good area that I'm still 60-70% in the game, if that makes sense. Yes, I'm going to do my best to be in it. If I see it lines up the next 3-4 days, I got the right conditions, I will hunt there dark to dark. Those next 3-4 days, you're not getting me out of there. Plain simple. And that's where me as a rut hunter, that's usually where I'm most successful. Everybody tells you about that first time in, and yes, I am very successful my first time in, but I've killed a lot of these bucks back here on multiple sits in the same tree.
And it all plays out differently on the area of the spot. I know, like in the big wood stuff that you were talking about before, you almost have to sit when you find a spot you think is good. You've almost got to put 3, 4, 5 days in, because those deer have a much larger circuit that they run, and those bucks could be here. So you're not even necessarily messing up a spot by going back to it multiple days, because the deer might not even been there. Whereas in tighter corridors, more deer.
Yeah, because we're getting into the stories again where I haven't been successful. Actually, last 2 years, leading in this year, I tell guys I was chasing the prize last 2 years. You get part of these podcasts and part of a fantastic team with Lone Wolf Custom Gear and stuff. I started chasing that prize, for social media and shit like that. And I kind of go out of the game. I learned I was bouncing too much. I'd sit here and I get down and sit here. Man, chasing my tail, and I realized that's not how you do it. You know what I mean? Once I stepped back, started refocusing, that's when I started getting my confidence back. Like this year going down Maryland, like after last year, I got my confidence back. And it's like, I know how to play the game. You let that outside influence, get in your head, man, that screws you up, and that's where now is like, I have like a 3-day rule. I think you had Mr. Steve Shirk on there a couple weeks ago. He's similar to that big wood setting, that at least a minimum of 3 days. And I honestly think if you want to be successful in the rut, pre-rut, You got to give it a minimum of 3 days on a spot because you got to let them bucks get around and cruise through.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And I mean, that pre-rut time where you were talking about your first story there with that cool little plateau crossing spot, like
Yeah,
you never know which day those does are going to start smelling just right. And those bucks we
yeah,
were talking about, like, they're laying down their sign, establishing all that dominance, rip those scrapes. So that 3 days, totally, that's the window you need, right? Like where they make that
yeah,
shift
yeah,
from, hey,
yeah.
my
I mean,
sign
I'll hunt
feed
spot
to like,
like a
let's
spot.
go.
Yes, yeah, spot like that. I might hunt for a week straight. To be honest with you, if I know, like, I have historical data and, like, say, just not historical data, it's camera wise. I'm talking historical data, ass time in a tree. That's prime to me. If I've been to a spot and I know what goes on, I mean, outside the fluids, things change every year. Don't get me wrong. Hunting pressure, especially, or food source, clear cut, stuff like that. But if I get in a good area, man, if I got confidence, I got ass time, and I got good bucks, I got good intel, some good bucks in the area, man, I will sit that. If you want me to sit 7 days, I'll sit 7 days. That's how I look at it. I'm confident that it's a grind. That's the mental part of the rut where a lot of guys that's where a lot of guys aren't successful in a rut. They struggle because it's the mental part. Yeah, physically it beats your ass, but the mental part is be able to sit 2-3 days. I haven't seen nothing. It's been slow, warm weather, something like that. Man, day 4 is when he's coming through. That's the tough part with the rut.
In your experience, I think we all have heard the rule and had some experience with, but in your experience being a rut hunter, how many bucks would you say have you killed in the middle of the day between 10 and 2?
Oh, yeah, I've killed a few numbers. I hate to put a number on it, but I think the one just right here above my head, I killed him at I think he was around 11:30. I killed him, so midday. But yeah, I've killed a lot of bucks, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And to be honest with you, I tell guys, rut wise, yeah, that frosty early thing in the morning or the sunset in the evening, you hear the rut action pick up sometimes. But probably overall, the years I've done this, that 10 to 2 time frame is probably where I've seen the best rut action overall. Not necessarily killing, but probably the best action I've ever seen has been middle of the day.
That's when I've personally seen the most, like, zombie walking
Yeah.
bucks,
Yes.
bucks bumping
Yep.
hot does. Like, it's always between 10 and 2 in my experience. That's what I've always
And
seen.
yeah. And that's why you won't, like, I hate when like the kryptonite for rut hunter is that warm weather, 78 degrees shit. Man, that's miserable. I mean, that is hard, but it's hard to get me out of a stand even when it's like that. I will take a break sometimes, but it's hard for me to even get out of a stand when it's 75 degrees. It's miserable. You haven't seen a damn deer. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a big buck on days like that, middle of the day at noon, high noon, 75 degrees. He's off a doe, tongue hanging out, looking for a damn doe. Like, you wouldn't think it. Man, I've seen it many a times. That's why it's hard for me to get out of the stand even on those days.
A buddy and I, this is a couple of years ago, we were down in Illinois and it was middle of the day. So we were trying to get, he had a private property he had permission on. He's like, let's go. We hunted the morning. Let's go hang stands. He had to get a couple stands up. And we
Mhm.
went in there at like 11 o'clock to hang some stands. And while we're hanging stands, I think we saw
Yeah.
3 big bucks at like noon. It's like
Yeah.
78 degrees. And they were
Yeah.
like hitting a scrape across the field. And we're like, Jesus, we got to sit one of these stands. We
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
stop hanging and
It's
get
going
them
to,
in there.
yeah. Yeah. It's going to suck. I mean, trust me, 99% of the time it's hot. Start getting about 70 plus. Man, it's some tough hunting. Was that 2022 a couple years ago. It was like, yeah, for like 3 damn weeks. And it was brutal, the hunt. I mean, just brutal. I mean, you only saw like a week of hunt, maybe 5-6 deer. But like in that time frame, I remember I had an opportunity one of those days. It's just said it's hunting. You just got to grind it out in them situations.
Well, and it's the whole you control the things you can, right? You can't control the weather,
Yeah,
but you can control if you're
yeah,
on a hunt. Put your ass in this
yeah.
chair. Put your ass in the
Well,
tree stand because that's
yeah,
what you got
that's where
control over.
yeah, and that's where experience comes in. That's where a lot of these young guys listen to this. The reason why I'll sit all day when it's 75 degrees is from experience. 30 years of it, like I used to say screws at 9 o'clock. I used to only go in the last hour. And then as I got more experience, I spent longer times in a tree. So sometimes, like, I don't feel like moving. I'm just going to sit here for a day. Holy shit, that's a big ass buck cruise. Like, you start putting that 2 and 2 together, and then the experience starts getting like, okay, yeah, it's 9 out of 10 days. It probably ain't going to happen when it's this warm, but there's that one chance it may happen. I've actually, to be honest
Yeah.
with A lot of the bucks back here behind me, I've killed on seasonally warm days in a rut.
What are you still sticking to? What you would do is like hunt those doe bedding areas, and they just come cruising through, or are you doing things
Um,
different? Are you looking for
uh,
like cooler, wetter areas? What? How does that look for you?
what I've learned from experience doing this and over a lot of failures, dropping pin stories here, a lot of failures, with a lot of sits. What I've learned over the years is what I will try to do is hunt low. Typically, what I notice when it's warm, seasonally warm, even when your nights are in your 50s, what I've learned is if I get low, that's when I will hunt low in the creek bottom, stuff like that. You do got to watch your thermals, your winds, of course, but you can still get away with that a lot of times in the morning. In the right situations, I will hunt low because typically it's cooler and it'll stay cooler down there. It seems like, say the sun comes up around 7:30. I got to about 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock. Like I got the first hour and a half, 2 hours of still decent hunting. Even when it gets seasonally warm, then once that sun gets up 9:30, it starts to shut everything off. And then similar in the evening, the same thing too, is I try to find maybe the north facing slope. Think where that sun's at, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't typically first thing in the morning, if it's on the eastern side, I don't worry too much. So I'm trying to catch that hour and a half, 2 hours. But as the day progresses, think where that sun's at. Maybe you're going to hunt that north slope or something like that. Or when that sun sets in the west, maybe you're on the east side or you're on the west side of Wisconsin. You know what I mean? You figure that in a little bit. Where's the coolest spot in the situation you're in? I don't care if it's farm country, hill country, mountains, whatever it is. Look for the cooler areas. And I have noticed, like I said, you can catch an hour or two in the morning, an hour or two, maybe an hour. Typically, it's about that hour at the end of the day, maybe half hour. It is a little shorter in the afternoon, it does seem to be. But those little windows, you can still get prime action. You just got to be in the right spots.
Yeah. There's so much to think about for guys who are, just entering into the idea of chasing bigger deer. But that little thing you just said there with, thinking about the sun and which hillside's going to be shady, which one's going to likely get a deer on its feet during daylight. Not to say that they're not bedded on one that's, blazing in the sun, but is that deer going to get up and move if it's 10, 12, 15 degrees warmer than the other side of the ridge where he might get up and go bump a doe or go check scrape or whatever.
Think of your thermal cover just like you do in the winter. You have to think of that too. There's thermal cover in the winter. There's also thermal cover when it's hot too. You have to figure that out what they prefer. And that's where the boots on the ground and starting to educate yourself, scouting stuff is what they prefer in those kind of areas. Sometimes you may find those areas like, hey, this might be pretty potential. If I got a warm rut, you find that spot like that and you log that. So that if I got a warm rut, this situation here may play out. I can utilize this in November when it's warm to come in here and possibly kill.
Yeah, logging that information away and always having that kind of backlog of spots you've checked and areas that have that. Are you a big note taker? Do you take notes? You write down, or do you just I've never put a pen to paper about deer. I've never done that, but some guys do that.
Freaking meathead, man. I tell guys I failed ninth grade English. Okay, so I'm not real freaking smart, but the good Lord, for whatever reason, my mind is for whitetails, nothing else. I can remember shit. So I definitely don't take a lot of notes. I can remember the damn shit for some reason. I can't remember anything else. Ask my wife, but I can remember whitetail shit.
I know why that is. The same reason I remember. It's because it's up at the top of priority for the memory. For some reason, we like chasing these stupid animals.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that's great. That's great. I guess maybe, and we haven't talked about this, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but this is something that I think back on when I think of, stories that I've learned from, and maybe you've got one, maybe you don't, maybe you can switch it off to something else, but I do want to ask, it's an idea I've kind of tossed around asking my guests, but do you have any stories about maybe the one that got away or a buck that you've, chased or, been after that's taught you a number of things, or one really good thing that you never ended up capitalizing on, but now you're a better hunter because you've chased that deer? Is that something you feel like you got enough that you could maybe tell us a story on?
I mean, here in Pennsylvania, with the tradition here in Pennsylvania, pretty much I grew up, it was kind of brown, it was down. So I never really got to get a lot of history with deer. Like the year I killed deer was the only damn year I saw them. So I never really can say I chased a deer or something like that. He's educated me over, like I say, a 2, 3, 4 year period over that. And so it's pretty much just been the kind of that moment type thing, education that wise. I mean, I've screwed up as, like I said, more times I've been successful. There's a couple that sting. To be honest, I killed I missed a 160 incher in PA. The reason I know he was 160, because he ran up to the farmer's boy and he killed him that night. And let me tell you, I lost sleep for a couple of days. And what that deer taught me was to pay attention, because this was a number of years ago. It's like when Facebook just started to get interesting, when it started. And my dumb ass was on that phone, and here he come. I was like, holy shit, that's a big ass buck. And I'm not trying to say this to be cocky, but I've been pretty good when it comes to a good deer coming in range to kill him. That one I sailed right over his damn back. And I'm telling you, to this day, that was probably 10 years ago. It still hurts. It still hurts. The lesson learned was probably more to this day is I try not to be on my phone. I try to pay attention, try to be in the moment, I guess you could say. Even when it's slow, when it's warm and stuff like that. I'm in Maryland for an hour, not expecting that buck to come out. Like that situation there in Maryland, you take that 160 that I whiffed on. Maryland, he's on me like that. 5 seconds, I kill him. Like that'll translate over the years to where that stupidity messing up on a buck of a lifetime in Pennsylvania, 10 years later, I'm successful in a situation, I get caught off guard.
That's a great tip just in general, because I think we're all somewhat guilty of that. I mean, these things have stolen a lot of our moments away over, the last decade. And
yeah, technology in general has. I mean, technology, like, yeah, we can go down a rabbit hole.
It's just the one point that I wanted to point out for what you just said, and the more often that phone is in your pocket or on silent that you're not checking, it's not even just like noticing more deer, but you get to learn the noises that all the other animals are making that will maybe tip you off on what's going on. And it's not always jays squawking in a bedding area, but you get real good when you actually pay attention. You really can hone that skill, and you'll know before you ever hear that deer move when something sounds like it's going to happen. And that can make the world of a difference when they come in fast, like you just said on that Maryland one. Being ready or being reactive versus being proactive can be the difference. It almost always is on mature deer. Not you got to make every opportunity count. That's what big consistent killers do. You make your opportunities count, because you don't give
they're very far where they were. I'm trying to term here. It doesn't happen very often. So when it does, man, you gotta be ready. Sometimes it plays out. Do they give you a little bit of time to get ready? Other times, man, it seems like it happens like that. There's a lot of times I kill them. It's like I'm like, that just happened. Like in Maryland was like that. It's like you're surprised. But I think it's the best way to happen. Less things bad happen sometimes. But just all part of it.
All right, Ryan. So your dream setup. We're coming up here in October, but let's say November. It's November 5th. What is what's ideal to you for your dream rut hunt? Is the buck bumping a doe? Is he cruising the leeward side? What's your kind of your setup that you daydream about that's going to be your big buck killer? You know what I'm saying? I just want to hear a little hypothetical.
I mean, my perfect situation, if you're looking for what gets me going in a situation in Big Woods Mountains, is I know there's multiple doe bedding areas around me, and I found a killer setup like a pinch. They're going to cruise here. It's got some historical sign, some rubs, some scrapes. Maybe I've had a camera in a general area. I've got 3 or 4 big shooters in this area. I got multiple doe bedding areas. We got cold weather. The access is awesome. I can spend 3, 4, 5 days in here. Yeah. And I think if I had to prefer to kill him, I mean, if he's coming down with the doe, he's not paying attention to me. I do like when doe comes by and he comes by, he has no clue. I won't even believe that. I'll just yell at some bitch. I've done that many times because they don't want, and I just yell, whoa, and they stop and just double lung, man.
I mean, when they're with the doe, and when the doe is hot, man, those does the does get a little weird too, because normally those mature does, they'll pick you off and they're nitpicky.
Yeah.
But when they got a big buck behind them, even if they spook, those bucks are so single track minded that's really the opportunity you're looking for, because you can get away with frickin'
you get away
literally
a little bit
murder.
there. Yeah, you get away a little bit. Yep.
Oh man. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty sweet setup there, man. Yeah, we're almost coming up here on an hour. Any last stories, thoughts, things that you think, would help? Let's just assume we got some guys who are, looking to cut their teeth on chasing mature deer this season. Their season's about to start. Is there any tip or story you think could just, one little thing to help the, up their game a little bit?
Yeah. Don't be afraid to turn the technology off with cameras or anything like that. Don't be afraid to go in the woods, put the boots on the ground, and go old school. What I've learned over the last couple of years, what I've learned from some guys, we all like running cameras, stuff like that. I think a lot of the technology saves a lot more deer than it kills, to be honest with you. What I've learned over the years, once you get experienced enough, you really don't need that stuff. And just get in there, get dirty. Don't be afraid to mess up. And I'm telling you, if you just get in there, get the boots on the ground, if you bump deer, don't care. You're going to learn from that. You're going to learn from them failures. Just keep pushing. You'll learn that what's too much, what's not enough. But man, sometimes anymore, I think if you just turn the phone off, turn the cell cams off, turn that off, go in old school woodsmanship. I think you'll be more successful, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's I mean, I don't know how the public is. I'm assuming you guys have a huge influx and pressure in the last 5 years, like everywhere in the country has.
Yeah,
But man,
I've always
I
have.
can't go.
Yeah.
I can't go to a single spot without running into half a dozen cameras or more. Like they're just freaking everywhere.
Hey, I run cameras. I run 30, 35 cameras across, handful of counties. I cover a big area. So they're not stacked. I don't do the shotgun pattern stuff and like that. I have a camera in a specific area to get a couple bucks. I don't stack cameras, but I still run cameras. So I have no really right to say anything negative. But what I am seeing, the amount of cameras, cell cams specifically, I am seeing on public land, we better start policing ourselves, or I'm thinking somebody's going to police us. I'm getting, like I said, I'm guilty like everybody out there. I told guys before, this is my last year probably running cell cams. I like my SD cams. I like just my inventory, some historical data. I don't want to be influenced. That's something that Maryland Buck told me. No cameras, no nothing. Went in, old school, killed. And it can be done. I think we forgot that can be done that way. And that's kind of where I'm starting to lean to a little bit,
You started the show here, started our conversation talking about confidence. And if that's not a confidence booster, and you don't need that stuff,
Yes.
like, sure, it's nice. Sure, you can learn from it. Of
It's
course
fun.
you can.
Yes. Yeah.
We all love getting pictures of big bucks, right? It's
100%. It's addicting. Yes.
But those cell cameras, especially, I think either tell guys don't hunt this spot because there's nothing big, when really if they walk, we've all done it, but like you said, get your boots on the ground and go look around, man. You nailed it.
Yeah, it's and I'm starting those cell cams to keep guys might think I'm crazy. Some of the mature bucks can pick them off. I don't know what it is. Some deer don't care. Some deer do. I figured out. My SD cam pulls, my card pulls compared to my cells are night and day. So there's something to it. What? I don't know.
We were just talking about a mutual friend, Brian, there down in Illinois, and he and Gary Grunow and myself were discussing that one day of like, what is the deal? Like, why are cell cams different? How do they sense them? We were talking about what the antennas are made out of, because like bears love chewing on cell antennas. Bears love chewing on those antennas.
I tell guys that
I'm
in bear infested area. I deal with a lot of bears, and bears eat my shit. Probably, say if I get 10 cameras eaten by bears, 8 or 9 were cells. And I put a lot of SD cams. So you tell me. There's something there. There's something there. What it is, I don't know. That's another reason I won't run them. I don't want to be influenced. I believe they do. I don't think the buck won't. He's not going to move out of his core area because of them. I actually was on a buck last week. He's big. He's either in the 60s or high 50s. I picked up his sign last week. I found multiple trail cameras from other guys. And that son of a bitch was skirting every one of them by his sign I followed. It was crazy. The scrape the cameras on was dried up. But then, I'd find where he was rubbing, you know what I mean, already in September. Just goes to show you, I don't think they're all like that, but some are.
Are you there, Ryan?
Yeah, we lost you for a sec. We switched.
I don't know what happened. It just said, "Oops, lost connection," and then it reconnected. So I'm sorry about that. Now we flip flop spots.
Yeah, football sides now.
So sorry. The last I heard was you just noticed that buck seemed to be skirting these other cameras.
Just reading his sign. I read his sign, and I was on him pretty good, and because he was laying down some rubs, and trust me, he's big, and I know his rub. Like, he was pretty aggressive, and I could see how high they were. And I got into a lot of cameras, and I had one camera in that area, and it was kind of shotgun pattern. Somebody had a lot of cameras scattered in there, and I haven't seen that buck for a while because I had a cell cam in there. And now when I started finding those cameras, I started putting two together. I'm like, he's figuring this out. And it was crazy to see his sign not far, maybe 30 yards off some of them camera setups. They just, what it is, I don't know. My guess, some of them was SD cams. My guess, human scent at that spot. He knew something was up and he would skirt it. I'm not saying you're not going to get pictures of them, but not as frequent. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I noticed in that situation there. And that's kind of what I'm noticing anymore.
Is that kind of a big woods area or not really?
Big woods mountain. Yeah. Yep. A lot of topography, a lot of edge, a lot of clear cuts. And like I said, I think it deals with a lot of something's coming off the cell cams, but there were some SD cams in there too, which my guess was probably checked a couple times in the summer, which the human scent factor came into that. So you add that all together, they start to figure it out. They can put 2 and 2 together to a point when it comes to human pressure and with predators, they start to figure some stuff out, I think.
And it's the same all across the board, but in my eyes, it's amplified in the big woods that they have spots they like to walk, but as soon as they experience that, they don't have to walk.
No, that's what I'm telling you. If I could take everybody right now listening, if you want me to prove a point on cameras, how not to use them, I could put you on this sign and you'd be like, a light bulb would go on. Everybody's like, holy shit. You can literally see the sign, see the trail camera setups, and see what that buck's doing. It's like, it's eye opening. I'm telling you.
That's very interesting.
Yep.
We had a situation somewhat similar to that, but my dad really kind of blew it up a little bit more. What had happened is my dad and I were hunting these two big mature bucks up in the national forest, and we had pictures of them for 4 years in a row. And we just, for whatever reason, never really decided to just go after them. And I was like, Dad, what the hell are we doing? Like, these bucks have been around. They're both very old. Let's try to hunt them down. So we moved a whole bunch of trail cameras and all SD cams. So we weren't checking them very often, but we moved into these areas and we started scouting new areas around there. And my dad found the spot, got a couple pictures of them. And he's like, I need to be hunting this spot. It's a low little slough that runs out of a larger swamp. And there's a low spot full of spruce. And he was crossing right through this low spot. He had a bunch of rubs. And my dad had the camera there. And then he went there to go hang a stand. Well, there's not many trees in that spot. Usually up in the national forest, there's a million. I mean, you hunt anywhere, but this low shit, there's not many trees. He's a little bit bigger dude, so he's looking for a tree, and he walked all over in front of that camera, looking for a tree, left all sorts of scent. Ended up finding a tree, set it up, and my mom was with him. My whole family, my mom and dad hunt with me, and my mom called me, and she's like, "It's not good." I was like, "What?" She goes, "Your dad walked circles and circles right around the good spot." She's like, "It's not going to be good." And the first picture that he had on that camera, like a day later, was that buck. And he locked up in front of the camera. Ears were forward, and then he was gone. And not a single deer walked by that camera for 3 weeks. And my theory on that was that he probably stomped around, and his scent being like he's like a 7.5-year-old buck. The other deer were like, well, if you don't like it, I sure as hell ain't going there.
I had a interesting story. I had a SD cam sitting over a scrape, and I use buck feed or whatever works for, And I go in, I doctor up in the summer, and I like to have them soak till end of summer. I go and pull that SD cam, and I'll doctor them up again. And I let them soak through. That's only like I check. I put it out in the summer. End of summer, I check that card, and I'm not checking again until after the season. I said low intrusion, low pressure. Well, I pull this SD card after the season, man, the bucks at. I'm like, man, this is pretty damn good. I mean, just mature 3, 4, 5-year-old deer. I was pretty damn good, All of a sudden, one morning in November, I see this guy come over and he's sprinkling some kind of shit in the damn scrape. What the? Totally dead. Like it went from the hardest scrape in the world. That guy, it was crazy to see that whatever he stuck in it, the product or him himself, that went from the hardest scrape in the country to dead. I mean, to see that, how I don't think people realize what pressure does. And when you do stuff like that in the wrong situation or adding the wrong thing to a scrape or any situation, like your dad said, it doesn't take much. Is those bucks very far from there? Probably not. But in that spot right there, like you said, they were like, we're not playing this game here. We've been down this road. It was crazy to see. Yeah.
I'd be really interested in knowing what that was for some reverse marketing there.
Yeah, like I said, I know what it was. I actually know what the product. I know exactly what it is, but I won't, out of respect, say it. Just let's say I use Buck Fever and it's great and I have great results. I won't say what this other product was.
So that's not what he was putting in it.
No, definitely not. Maybe his own shit or something. I don't know. Like I said, I could see the bottle. I knew what it was. I was like, I will never purchase that product. That's for sure.
I've never tried it. I don't do a lot of scents with scrapes. I usually just pee in them myself, and I usually have, curiosity. The bucks hit it. Yeah, but I do have a buddy of mine who I hunting chat. We got to chat every day, and he just bought his first round of that Buck Fever synthetic. He bought a big jug of it, a gallon of it, or whatever, and he put some in a scrape he just set up like a week ago, and he has had a whole bunch of bucks that he did not have cameras in the existing areas. And he bought some kind of squirt bottle that he bought off Amazon because it's a real vast, big woods area with some marshes. And he sprayed that shit up as high as he could. He said, I wanted to attract deer from a long way. So he sprayed it up like 18 feet, he said. And he's got some of the nicest bucks come into that scrape in the last week. And I was like, well, shit. Maybe there is something to this.
Yeah, I have really good luck with it. Not the product push here, but me personally, I've used it for years, and there's a lot of products out there that work. Don't get me wrong, but for me personally, that's been the best thing I've used.
And you got to be confident. We talked about confidence.
Well, that's what it comes down to too.
If you're confident in it, use it. Like if you don't have confidence, just don't mess.
End of the day, that's what we were talking about. This end of the day, once you get experience, it's the confidence. Once you're confident, when you're going in there and getting in that tree, you're not walking around or anything like that. Once that confidence sets in, you know how far to push or not push and all this stuff, what tree to get in. You're confident to sit 2-3 days, dark to dark, all this stuff. You're confident when to move. Like all that plays into this is, man, confidence. When you're confident, you're going to kill. I'm telling you, you're going to kill.
Absolutely. That sounds like a great ending statement here. We've been on for an hour. Ryan, I just want to say thanks a lot for joining us. Where can folks find you if they want to hear more? I'm assuming this is not their first time they ever heard you, but just in case it is, where can they find you? And
I've been on a couple of them, I guess.
You've been on a
lot. You get me on, I have Facebook, but I really don't do Facebook too much. You can get me on Instagram. I'm pretty active on their stories. Moose1720, if you want to follow me.
And then, of course, just Google his name and Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. And Ryan's done a whole bunch and shared a lot of great knowledge. I know I've listened to a lot of yours over the years. So really cool to sit down and talk to you. I appreciate you jumping on and sharing some stories with us tonight.
Hey, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, best of luck this season. And can't wait to see what you knock down, man.
Same to you.
All right. Good night, everybody.